We've had very little sleep. So here we are, Chris, Shelley, and I, outside of another occupation of what street is this? Do we know?
We're at, right now we're standing in Tamar Park, which is across the street from the government buildings, and behind us, the protesters have occupied Lungwo Road.
But even more importantly, you can see just to the right. If you look to the right, you see what is the People's Liberation Army garrison in Hong Kong. So that's a fun little reminder of the tyrannical forces oppressing all of us right now.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting of the optics of that, right?
Yeah, and the only thing more terrifying than that is the fact that I can hear in the air buzzing around the CNN drone. We don't know where it is, but we know it's watching.
I think that's actually an airplane.
That's an airplane, yes, but there's also the drone. I know the difference between a drone, Shelley.
I don't know. You just said Chris and Shelley and I. So just checking.
So a quick update from us. Basically, we were out at the protest last night till about 1 in the morning. Then we were up all night editing the episode that came out today, which you should check out if you haven't seen it. Not right now. You should watch our live.
It is a not live episode. It's from yesterday's massive 2 million person protest.
Yes. And then today, this morning, after about a wonderful hour of sleep, we got word that police were potentially trying to clear the protesters out in front of the Legislative Council. So you found that out, right?
Yeah. So basically, last night we were where we were hanging out and doing the live stream from, like, that area behind us. That 8-lane highway was being occupied by protesters all night, but slowly, more people went home. So by about 5:36 in the morning, there were only about a few hundred people, and then the police came out in full force to clear it so that they could get the roads open for morning traffic.
Oh, but it was interesting that it was not like the riot police up in front. This was the blue clothes police? And women, female police officers at the front, right?
Yeah, so basically, you could tell that the police are trying to project a kinder, gentler image after, shooting 150 tear gas canisters into crowds.
And swearing at protesters and reporters.
And pepper spraying and all that fun stuff. So what happened this morning is that the police came out, but at the front they put really small, weak-looking police officers, and a bunch of female police officers were on the front line. So, and then they were basically trying to persuade the protesters to give up the road. And so that you could tell that they were just trying to not escalate the situation.
And what was really remarkable about that is just how few protesters there were, and yet they were still able to hold the square, which really shows how the balance of power has kind of shifted over the past few days. I mean, when you get 2/7 of the population of your city out protesting, that's a lot of power.
And then what happened was the police suddenly retreated. So then there was just kind of a standoff for a few hours where the protesters were still on the road. And then the protesters basically decided themselves to voluntarily give up Harcourt Road, that massive 8-lane highway. So there were still only a few hundred of them, so they retreated out and kind of went back to the area in front of the government buildings.
Yeah, the big thing right now is they want to begin some kind of dialogue with Carrie Lam.
So what happened today was that the protesters kind of cleared out of that area, life was resuming as normal, and then during a press conference, China's foreign ministry, our favorite foreign ministry spokesperson, Chris,
Liu Kang,
had affirmed that Beijing was standing behind Carrie Lam. So last night, Carrie Lam had said, in response to the massive 2 million person protest, that she apologized. Well, she released a statement. She didn't actually come out and apologize. She released a statement where she apologized in the third person. And then that was the only response the government gave the protesters. So this afternoon, the Beijing affirmed that they were standing behind Carrie Lam, and then the protesters were like, we want a dialogue with Carrie Lam. So they marched to the chief executive office, which is one of the buildings behind us. And they've been here since 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and slowly, as more and more people came, they kind of spilled out and end up occupying the road right here.
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone really knows where Carrie Lam is. I don't know if she's been seen over the past day or two. But what's interesting about this is sort of the problem that this has caused for the Chinese Communist Party. Like, they cannot tolerate that if 2 million people come out and protest, that they're actually able to, one, get the chief executive to step down, Carrie Lam to step down, or to actually change legislation. Now, that is not something they would tolerate in China, and that's not something they can tolerate here. But they really can't do much when there's 2 million people out on the street, so it's sort of a no-win scenario for the Communist Party.
I mean, they could hope that people kind of drop it, I guess. The thing about that is we were talking to some of the activists today, and they pointed out that if the 2 million person march really did get Carrie Lam to step down, what you're saying to the Hong Kong people is that, like, anytime you don't really like what your chief executive is doing because you can't really directly elect him or her, all you have to do is get a few million people into the street, and then, things will change. And that's, like Chris was saying, basically structurally impossible for the Chinese Communist Party to allow.
Yeah. And that's really dangerous inside of China, because if people inside of China see that this works in Hong Kong, China's got like 1.4 billion people now. If they see that large-scale protests can actually force the Communist Party to do something, they'll kind of see that the party's not as powerful as it may seem.
That's not really a concern right now, though, because this is so heavily censored inside China. Somebody today had tweeted photos of the China Daily, which is the English language propaganda paper. And
tailored for you.
Yes. So it's not even got a wide readership in China, but the Chinese version, the China version, and the Hong Kong version of the China Daily had completely different stories about the protest. The Hong Kong version was kind of like a watered down, there was a protest that happened yesterday.
Some people turned out.
Yeah, and then the China version was about a completely different protest where people apparently got together, especially parents, and affirmed that the U.S. should not interfere in China's internal affairs, and they were protesting in support of the extradition bill.
Yeah. And the other line you sort of see in Chinese media is the idea that this is, again, just a U.S. plot. I heard somewhere that the rumor was going around that the CIA was paying each protester, like $600.
Well, Hong Kong dollars.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 600.
That makes more sense.
Yes.
Okay. Because considering there were 2 million people yesterday, that's a lot of money.
So the rumor was that $600 just for Hong Kong dollars for showing up, and $1,000 if you get hurt.
What a deal. Can I cash in on that?
I think 1,000 Hong Kong dollars would be enough for you to buy a pretty nice meal somewhere.
That's $120.
Yeah.
Hey, $120. I'd sell out my city for $120. I'd sell out New York for $120. Let me tell you that. A lot of you were asking us questions last night about why people are singing the hymnal, Sing Hallelujah. And so we did some digging. We kind of found out the story about that. It's really interesting. Oh, real quick, I see some people have donated some money to us. I just want to thank S. Ribeiro. And I heard from the Chinese media the protest consists of only 14 people, 20 foreigners, and possibly a cat.
We're not sure about the cat. It could have just been walking around the way cats do.
Does it matter if it's a black cat or a white cat?
As long as it protests.
I guess so. All right, well, we'll get to that actually in a second. So we'll answer some of your questions in just a moment. But Shelley did the digging and found out the story behind the hymnal, and that's super interesting.
Oh, so yeah, a lot of people recognize the fact that there was a song going on in the background in our live stream. Some of you recognize that it was Sing Hallelujah to the Lord, which is a pretty, simple hymn. And the reason behind that is some of the Christian groups here started. The churches were helping organize some of the initial protests, and some Christian groups started singing that kind of over and over on a loop, and I think the record was
for 8 hours.
Yeah, 9 hours, 8 or 9 hours in a row. They did it one day, and the reason is not just because they extremely love the song, as we all do, but
it's become the song of this protest.
Yes, but the strategic reason is because In Hong Kong, a religious gathering doesn't need a letter of no objection from the police, which is basically like a permit to be legal. So, if people are singing a Christian hymn, that obviously means that this entire protest is a religious gathering, so the police can't kick them out for being an illegal protest.
Yep, clever stuff. All right, so let's go to some questions. Let's go up to the top there and see. All right, that was the first one. Okay. So, designed by Architect, donated $24.99. Thank you. And just says, thank you, Chris, and be safe. Thank you for not mentioning Shelley and Matt. Your safety wishes are more potent if it's directed to one person. And I appreciate that you chose me. Why don't you take this one?
Look, if Matt and I go down, it's just Chris with a selfie stick wandering around Hong Kong.
A new style of China Uncensored. You'll love it. Esther Reith donated us $5. Do you guys think that there's a realistic possibility of Mrs. Lam's resignation? Thank you for your excellent news reporting. Yeah, thank you. So, I mean, again, like, the Communist Party has made it clear that they are supporting Carrie Lam. So it will be, like, major egg on their face if they can't keep her in power. But, I mean, this is now entering, like the fourth, possibly fifth day that the Hong Kong government has been shut down. I think eventually there's going to be a lot of internal pressure that's going to maybe want Carrie Lam to resign. So it's hard to say what's going to happen this time.
I mean, of course, Beijing could also stop supporting Carrie Lam whenever it's convenient to throw her under the bus.
That's true. I'm just surprised it hasn't happened already. So
I think that there's been some bus throwing. I mean, and
bus throwing under buzz.
Well, I mean, the whole thing that was like, it was the Carrie Lam being like, oh, it was all me. Beijing had nothing to do with it, I mean,
her setting it up.
Yeah,
like that.
I mean,
yeah.
It could be initially true. Like, she could have come up with the idea, but there's no way that she would have done it if somebody in the Chinese Communist Party didn't sign off on the idea of the extradition bill, right?
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I have that bill is because it's something the Communist Party wants. If you don't know the background of the extradition bill, basically they're using the excuse of there was like a case of like a Hong Kong resident going to Taiwan and murdering someone.
His girlfriend.
Murdering his girlfriend.
And stuffing her into a suitcase.
Lovely stuff. But so then they were like, oh, well, we need an extradition bill for this case so we can extradite this Hong Kong person to Taiwan. But obviously they can't have a bill with Taiwan since Taiwan is part of China. So then they use that as an excuse to have this much broader extradition bill where they would also have to extradite people to mainland China.
Well, basically, the extradition bill it covers any countries that Hong Kong doesn't have an official extradition treaty with. So it's like, well, any place, so that's why they call it like closing a loophole. So it's like any place that doesn't have an extradition treaty with us, once we pass this bill, we can, on a case-by-case basis, extradite them. And then people were worried, and the Hong Kong government is like, don't worry,
You can trust us.
We'll put in safeguards. It won't apply to political crimes. It was applying to crimes that were punishable by 3 years or more, and then they're like, we'll raise it to 7 years. So all of these things that were meant to reassure the public didn't really reassure the public.
It's also interesting that in Taiwan, like, they've been supporting the protesters and, like, have even said, like, we don't want that extradition bill. We don't want to have the murderer extradited to Taiwan. We'd rather have no extradition bill and let that guy not come to Taiwan.
Well, what they didn't say they didn't want the guy. They were just like, we will not extradite him under this bill, because then that kind of, the excuse that Carrie Lam was using was that, like, we need to urgently ram this through the legislature right now because,
we got to solve this horrible crime.
Yeah, like, the parents of the woman who died, they're waiting for justice. And then when Taiwan was like, look, we hate this, we're not going to use it for that. So then, like, that kind of took the wind out of the sails of being like, this is something we need to do now. Because the guy is actually in prison in Hong Kong. They were able to imprison him for tax fraud.
Tax fraud.
Because he had or maybe credit card fraud, actually, because it was that he had used his dead girlfriend's credit cards.
Class act.
So they were able to imprison him for 29 months, but they're like, we need to get this through so we can get him to Taiwan for a murder trial before he's let out of prison. So that's like the complicated backstory. So sometimes we have people who are kind of defending the the Chinese Communist Party or the Beijing government who are like, oh, well, people aren't being reasonable. Like, they're putting all these safeguards in, it's for this reason. Why don't you guys ever talk about the fact that it's because of this Taiwanese, murder case? And it's because that's all kind of like an excuse. It's all kind of, it's.
Does it make you want to drop a F-bomb, Shelley?
No.
She's been swearing all day. It's been awful. But an interesting side note about all of this is the effect it's had in Taiwan. It's kind of gotten everyone in Taiwan afraid of, CCP influence. And I think we both think it's kind of helping the current president, Tsai Ing-wen's chances of re-election.
It definitely probably helped her win the primary.
Yeah.
But, the election is still several months away, so many things could happen. But even the KMT, the now more pro-China party, has come out and said that we don't want one country, two systems, whereas, they're the party that's kind of been like cozying up to China and all this stuff. So there's obviously been a kind of Taiwanese people are worried.
Yeah, there was this element of some people kind of looking to the Hong Kong model of one country, two systems, where Taiwan can benefit from all the economic stuff, and now it's kind of clear that actually that doesn't really work out in the long run. You don't get to keep your freedoms. All right, let's see what else we have.
What's terrible? For some reason, this live chat, I'm losing everything that's happening in the beginning, so it's going through so fast that I'm missing a lot of your comments, so really apologize for that. It's happening in a weird way that hasn't happened before. I'm going to quit out and see if I can fix that.
Oh, gosh. Now we're just stuck.
Talk
alone.
About something, Chris. Maybe sing hallelujah to the Lord.
Sing hallelujah. Sing hallelujah.
Oh, do you want to talk about...
Imagine that for 8 hours.
Okay, we're back.
What are we talking about?
So, Tao Jing donated $14.99 Australian, said thank you for everything you've done.
Awesome.
Phil Tang donated 20 Canadian, said add oil. Yeah.
Thank you. Jiao.
Jiao. It literally means add oil, but it's kind of like go.
Keep going.
Words of encouragement.
Wow.
People asking about the press fest.
Okay, so before that, Normandy Frankia has donated $30.99 because I dropped an F-bomb yesterday. Thank you.
I guess F-bombs are profitable. So I guess some people are...
they might be more profitable than YouTube.
Demonetizing all of our videos that we're doing about the Hong Kong?
Talk about that for a little bit?
Real quick, as people were asking about the press vest. So... sort of all the press are wearing these kind of vests, so they kind of stand out if in the event that police get violent. Not that it really helped last Wednesday when there were cases of police specifically targeting the press and pepper spraying them, cursing at them.
Oh, yes, the cursing was the worst part.
Hey, it's not nice. I don't like cursing.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Shelley.
So anyway, the press vest actually, what was really nice is that the Hong Kong Journalists Association, ahead of yesterday's giant protest, was offering basically gear to journalists who didn't have any of their own. So, we
got these lovely vests.
And they also gave us, hard hats, safety goggles is not the right word for it.
Yeah, they're like they're like filters for your mouth that kind of filter out tear gas.
It is it's not for filtering out tear gas. Specifically, masks.
Sidewalk garbage in Hong Kong. I did put it on, and it did help. All right, so Edward Badlands. Wow, donated $99.99. And it's not working, Shelley.
What am I doing? Ugh. I've broken it. Okay.
Okay. Son.
From Sydney. Thank
Oh, thank you. Martin, Hong Kong. Oh, the Communist Party.
Can't use that word.
That, like we've been telling people here, just like all the love and support you guys have been giving, and they really do appreciate it, because I know a lot of them kind of feel like, you know, it's sort of a uphill battle. That, like, is anyone like really paying attention? But so it's great to hear the support.
Lag, super lag.
Oh, okay. So, you know, internet is not great right now, so we're probably a bit laggy, or very laggy.
How's it now?
Why are all of you people typing F? I know what that is supposed to represent. Shame. All right. What else? Do you have anything up there? All right. Minnie Connor donated us 20 Australian dollars. Thank you. She says, thank you for being a part of the protest to save my home. And Shelley, good on you on the F-bomb. No. Mimi.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Mimi.
We were also going to talk about the demonetization.
Yes, let's just get through this.
Okay. Machiavelli gave $19.99. Thank you. Awesome work, guys. No to the CCP. Much love from Los Angeles. My hometown. Thank you. And Howard Shun gave $10. I really love what you guys are doing. Keep up the good work. Thank you. All right. Demonetization rant. Beginning now?
So, what's been weird is that all of our Hong Kong videos that we've done in the last week have been demonetized at some point or the other. And the only one was remonetized was the first one that we did about the giant 1 million person protest last week. After an hour and a half, they remonetized it. But everything else, they've demonetized it, and in a lot of cases, they confirmed it by a person.
Confirmed by manual review.
Which means that it's never going to be remonetized. So what that means is like limited or no ads. And I think there was one video where, I think it was was it the Mothers protest? No, it was the Carrie Lam. What?
The Denise Ho one, but we'll get to that.
Okay, so one of our videos, like, it was demonetized, and then so it got like 120 some thousand views, and we made $14 on it.
Yeah, which by comparison, we did a couple months ago, we did an episode about pandas. It only got like 80,000 views, but did.
Oh, like, well, it got like it got $150 or whatever, $180.
Yeah. So basically, like the much larger one that was more important, did like 5% of that or something. You know, I'm sure my math skills are great right now.
So it's been weird because we had an interview with Denise Ho that we did from the Oslo Freedom Forum. You guys might have seen it. And we published it before any of the protests happened. It was totally fine. And then we noticed yesterday that it had been demonetized.
Permanently, too.
Yeah, no. We appealed yesterday, and then today it was like permanently demonetized.
Yeah. And there's nothing controversial in that. Like, there's no footage of like any kind of war scenes or like even protests.
Right,
that happened before the protests.
There's no footage of anything. It's just an interview. She talks about the extradition bill, and then she talks about the idea that they're going to have an upcoming protest about it, which was the one last Sunday with 1 million people. So it was apparently all fine, and then something's happening where we're just talking about the extradition bill got demonetized permanently. Yeah. It's so weird.
So something is going on with YouTube algorithms where anything about Hong Kong is getting, or at least on our channel, getting flagged and demonetized. And it's because Google and YouTube is so opaque about all this. Like, we don't really know what's going on. Is it something YouTube is specifically targeting? Is it the result of like paid Chinese trolls flagging videos so it gets demonetized? We just have no idea, and YouTube has no way for us to really communicate.
There's nobody for us to ask, and there was no way to know why something got demonetized.
Yeah, and it kind of stung a little bit, like after marching all day, staying up all night, editing the video about the 2 million person march, and then instantly demonetized. Thanks.
Yeah, I literally did not sleep at all. Yeah. So we were just not. It's a little discouraging when that happens.
And for clarity, it's not even so much that like the demonetization part, but the part about YouTube is unclear on this, but it seems that if a video is flagged, they'll push it out less, so fewer people will see it.
They have some vague language about that, and they've tried to deny in the past that they don't recommend demonetized videos, but it's pretty clear that they don't recommend demonetized videos.
Yeah.
So, like, that's what's frustrating, is, like, we're doing these videos where we're really hoping that people see what's happening here in Hong Kong, and, like, you know, try to give the Hong Kong people, like, a voice, and they really feel, you know, whenever they hear that, like, you know, media from America are paying attention to them, it really encourages them, and people in America are encouraging. I talked about this on the live stream last night, but then the fact that, you know, the one that was remonetized has over twice the views of any of the other ones that we've done. That's super discouraging. Yeah.
But, well, should we maybe start wrapping this up?
Do we want to...
All right, let's go. Oh, a few more people. Okay, let's go through a few more. Long Ung donated $50. Thank you.
Enjoy
dim sum. Yeah, we haven't had dim sum. We have been eating poorly, as we tend to do on these trips.
At 5 a.m. in the morning, Chris and I went to the sketchy pizza place down the street and got Matt something.
Yes.
While he was, like, you know, trying to finish the video edit of our protest march video.
There were some very colorful transvestite prostitutes out on the streets of Hong Kong at that hour.
And then Oglan Sarash donated $9.99, said, the Chinese Communist government said Hong Kong has 7 million people, only 2 million people are protesting, other 5 million people support the extradition bill. Do you agree with this? No. It's not clear to me what the other 5 million people think, because, you know, you obviously have people who are not very politically activated. Like, they might be apathetic about it, they might think, oh, it's not important, but that doesn't mean they support the bill. That seems kind of...
Yeah, it's not like an and/or situation.
There are also people who are afraid of marching, who oppose the bill, but have said that, like, they're afraid that, like, there will be retribution for the people who are protesting this, and a lot of the protesters also feel the same way, which is why you have all these, like, teenage kids walking around with these, like, face masks and stuff, because they're afraid that, like, later on they'll be identified and then arrested or otherwise, you know, persecuted for...
Which is what happened to a lot of the people in the umbrella movement. They were identified and sent to jail. We spoke today.
It was mostly the leaders, so it wasn't...
Mostly leaders, yeah.
So they basically, that was one of the ways in which it was pretty obvious that Beijing and the Hong Kong government were trying to, like, take the wind out of the sails of the protests by kind of being like, well, you will suffer retribution. Like, 3 years later, Joshua Wong just got out of prison again today on another conviction related to the umbrella protests.
And one of the things people are really concerned about is how Carrie Lam has been using the language that these are organized riots, because that carries a charge of like 7 to 10 years, I think, in the Hong Kong prisons.
If you're rioting, if you're charged and, like, sentenced for rioting, it can start 7 to 10 years. And then they've already arrested some of the people. Like, I think we talked about this before. There's a guy who was a teacher, shot in the face by a rubber bullet, was arrested while he was still in the hospital. So that's one of the demands that the protesters have, is that they stop saying these are riots and drop the charges against the people.
Yeah. And a lot of people here are, like, even terrified of, like, if they get injured, going to the hospital, because they now know that, like, a hospital will turn them over to Hong Kong police if it suits them.
Well, actually, there was a news story that came out today that was pretty shocking, which was that a whistleblower from the hospital system came out and was like, the police can see the private records of the people who come into the hospital, and, like, proved that there was a way in which, like, the police were able to access hospital records.
Wow.
So that makes it even more worrying for people. So there's people who are afraid of retribution, and then there are also people who really wanted to support the protests but had to work. Like, there are many reports of like, you know, bus drivers or, like, MTR, like subway conductors, who were making announcements about, like, you know, I can't be there today, so you guys march for me, add oil, like that kind of stuff. So there are people who are supportive but just not able to march. So it's definitely not fair to say 5 million people support the extradition bill, because they were not on the street.
All right.
So,
Melody Lowe donated 100 Hong Kong dollars, support from a fellow Hong Kong citizen. Thank you. We really appreciate that. And somebody else donated 10 Australian dollars. Thank you. Okay. All right, I think probably at this point we're going to have to start wrapping this up. It has been a long 2 days. We might need to eat a meal and get a little bit of sleep. But actually, so we're basically going to be monitoring the situation the entire night, and like we have all of our gear ready to like rush back out to the protest site. So we'll see what happens tonight. If there is something big that happens, we will possibly do another live. Otherwise, we'll do an episode about anything that happens. But yeah, we don't really know what's going to happen tonight.
Oh, yeah, and we have actually several other episodes we've done already that we have in the pipeline for you guys.
Yeah.
But, you know, one of the challenges of being here as a three-person team is that our video editor, Seamus, is in New York, so we can't actually send him the footage to video edit for us.
No.
Because of the upload speeds are so slow. So Matt's been doing all the video editing himself, too.
So a round of applause for Matt, guys. Matt can see your comments, so he'll see the applause.
So it's very, you know, it's been a strain, let's say, to try to get these videos out to you as quickly as we can. And that's another reason we've been doing these live streams, and we hope you guys have been enjoying them, because we really want to tell you what's happening here. And this is
This has been a great, quick way to do it.
Yes, and we don't need to video edit this, even when I accidentally swear. So.
Oh, yes. Well, hey, it netted us some contributions. So keep at it, Shelley. I give you permission. You're unchained. Something to look forward to the next live. All right, so thanks for joining us today. Keep your eye out for a new episode. It'll be coming out pretty soon. And yeah, we'll stay safe and keep bringing you the stories. Bye, guys.